Okay, I'm going to fly a second test of my new center of gravity settings, and as I stated in the earlier video, I've got a little ring down here. I think you can see that. Can you see that ring? Okay. And I engineered a little hook like this. Engineered, you're right. Anyway, what I do is I turn the plane upside down and I hang it from this little gadget here, see? And in so doing, then I can look at the plane and see whether it's nose heavy or tail heavy or neutral. And at this point, it's exactly neutral at my center of gravity here, which is directly at the leading edge of the lower wing. Factory setting was right here, which is some 38 millimeters above it, closer to the leading edge of the top wing. And it was giving me a lot of nose heavy characteristics that I didn't like. I didn't like how fast the plane had to come in to land and how much it bounced if you had a short runway and couldn't use that speed and had to scrub it, and how when you dropped it down to a speed at which it would land on that short of a runway, it would stall rather radically. And even with an ideal runway, the tendency to bounce, I'm sure, caused the propeller to fracture on one of the three blades. And they don't come apart right away. They don't come apart when they just fracture like that. Instead, they'll crack right along the outside screw from either side of the outside screw. Then when you get them in flight the next time, usually the next time, that blade will come off, and it'll come off under a hard pull. And usually it'll take another blade with it, and when it does, the motor will actually exit the plane sometimes after breaking the motor mount from the vibration. And it really destroys the plane. I've rebuilt this one now twice, once because of that problem, another because I had a Hobby King version 2 gyro in it. It was a good gyro. The only thing was, when they engineered it, they failed to have it recognized two different types of servos at the same time. So when I put in the new metallic servos, it wouldn't recognize those in harmony with the analog servos that were in the plane for the ailerons. Subsequently, what would happen is the servos would alternate between reversing or locking up. And I didn't know it was the case because everything checked out fine on the ground, and I got it up in the air and made a couple of passes, and it acted really erratic, so I was bringing it around to land it, and it just went nuts. So anyway, that's what happened the second time around. But those metal geared servos were in there because I was having such hard landings at that speed, you know, with the weight so far forward. I've had to get back in here, and I had to rebuild all of the motor mountings and everything and get that all squared away. I had to re-angle the motor so that I had exactly the right angle of 2 degrees to the right, 1 degree down on the motor itself. And it's just been a lot of problems, all because of that center of gravity that the factory felt should be observed. However, the fellow that designed the plane, a guy by the name of Curtis Pitts, said that the center of gravity on these things wants to be right here at the top of the spar along here. And it doesn't vary. It's that way on every Pitts S1 and S2 that he ever made. So I thought, well, what the heck? I'll go ahead and I'll use factory settings for the design of the airframe and see if it doesn't work better. Lo and behold, I was watching Pete's video again, and of course his video on Banana Hobby, he's got the battery back there where I do. So he had figured aerodynamic chord, mean aerodynamic chord, and figured his C.G. from that, which is what I did, and which bore out what Curtis Pitts had already determined and put in his specifications. Anyway, to give you an idea where the battery is, in case you didn't see the other video, I've come back you see there's another little hole down in here, and I'm back about 10 millimeters back of that little hole. I've got a 4400 6 cell in it. If you've got a lighter battery, you may want to be just a little bit further forward, but I wouldn't go any more than 10 millimeters one way or the other at a time. If you put a 5000 in, I'd come back maybe 5, but right in that area. And then what I do, because the balance of the battery is more rearward and hanging over that hole, I put in an additional piece of styrofoam down here, and then I tape across my strapping here and keep this little diodo here out of the way of the rest of the electronics, so there's no interference, and it works. Anyway, when I hang the plane upside down from my little gadget, it's exactly neutral. The last flight, it had just a slight downward turn at the nose, not much, just barely perceptible, but it was there. Anyway, so now it's exactly neutral, and we'll see how that works. To compensate for that, I've given it 4 degrees of down elevator, one more than I had before, so that it'll have a tendency to not try to climb, exorbitantly in level flight. And when I roll it over, should it have a tendency to rise too quickly in inverted flight, I'll probably take out that last degree and go 1 degree positive from where I'm at right now, which will level that out. But I rather foresee that that's not going to happen. I think it's probably going to perform pretty well. Everything else is just pretty much straightforward. You can see all of the repairs I've done to it. I've got to put my covering up here and get rid of that mess now and get that covered up. But it feels better about it. I pick it up and it doesn't groan and say, oh no, am I going to go crash again? I feel real bad. But it's an awfully good plane. They were really well made. I think FMS does a really good job on them. I don't know why they had the 90 millimeters from the leading edge of the top wing. The only thing I can think of is possibly it's because when you have a lot of space and everything, they might be a little easier for a beginner to land, because they can come in more quickly and not have to worry about any stall point. Because the pits can be kind of tough to land. But I find you slow them down and you don't have nearly as far to go or as fast to go to overcome the stall point. So, I don't think that they were thinking right. Or it could have been a screw up in translation, I don't know. I really don't. But if they'd taken that same line, and if they'd even just measured from here and taken a straight line across and taken their 90 millimeters, it would have come out exactly where I did anyway. So I think it may have been a misprint, but there's been a lot of guys, myself included, that chewed nails trying to get that center of gravity to come in. You had to take out foam and get that battery all the way up against that plastic firewall before the motor mount. And if you didn't, the plane wouldn't perform. It was just terrible. And after that, it was still pretty terrible. Z8 does a pretty good job with it. He can, and so does Eduardo Freitas up in Canada, and Dean Borshin in Portland. They all do a really good job flying it, but they could all be more agile with it, and I think have a lot more fun flying it if they got that battery back there to where the plane gave them some more realistic neutral feel about it. Because the Pitts is really, it's a high performance little plane, and you don't get in a Pitts and fly it, you put it on and fly it, and it's a part of you, and you watch Stewart and some of the rest of these guys, and God, it's like they and the plane are one, and it's pretty hard if you're always fighting the nose weight, So anyway, a good indication that they're still using the original Pitt center of gravity on their big planes is the fact that some of the maneuvers they can do, you can't do with nose weight, with a lot of nose weight. There's just no way you're gonna, knife edge loops, stuff like that. It's ridiculously hard to accomplish with a lot of nose weight. extremely flat turns, inverted and right side up. It's really tough unless you're working off a nearly neutral center of axis. So with the center of axis being right here, in other words, the point at which all directions revolve around a common point, the center of gravity then, normally they go about 30 degrees, 28 degrees, and I'm right at 30 degrees right in there, 30 to maybe down to 27, right in that area. And that's about where they fly them. And I can see why, because it's really a ball to fly. Once you get it airborne, it's pretty much a done deal. You're just going to have fun and fly it, you know. You want to be a little careful. Coming in is all, you know. Taking off, you don't have the big twitchy beast out there trying to eat up everything it can find in front of it. It just, you know, you just speed it up enough to get it rolling forward and squeeze the throttle on a tiny bit more until she's airborne and you're gone. I mean, you don't even have to give it a lot of up elevator to get it up. You just let it fly itself off, and it's really a pleasure to fly. So I'm having fun with it. Anyway, I'm going to shut up because I'm going to try to tag this with my fly-in flight and have one video out of it. So anyway, let's see what we can do with this thing. Okay, I side slipped coming in a little bit. The reason was, of course, the wind was pretty strong. It was gusting out of the south at that point, a crosswind. But it gives you an idea of how it handles with that setting, and I'm about neutral right now. There's no appreciable nose down attitude to it. There's a little bit, but not really an appreciable amount. You'd have to use a ruler to actually detect it, I would imagine. But anyway, it flies rather well. I like it, and if that helps any of you in your decisions about the weight, the main advantage that I found of it is landing shorter, taking off in less time with less power. And once you're in the air, your maneuvers can be done the same aerobatic maneuvers can be done at a slower speed than I had to do them before with the battery forward. With the battery forward, I had to build up good speed and good torque before going into it. Now I can commit to it, to the thing I'm going to do, and then accelerate into it. I don't have to build that speed ahead of time, so it gives me a little time as a novice to think about what I'm going to do next and this sort of thing. In the meantime, the plane can kind of go into idle, the motor can cool down a little bit, and I'm not ready for my next one by just giving it the throttle and pulling it up or rolling it over or whatever I have to do. It's a lot less erratic, and it's easier for me, and if it's easier for me, I know it'll be easier for you too. So I figured I better get it on the camera. Anyway, thanks for watching.